We're here for another edition of the Outlook series, and I'm your host, Mike Lippis. Distributed order management systems have become a critical platform for successful omnichannel commerce in retail and consumer goods companies. At the same time, many companies are finding the need for new warehouse management systems as e-fulfillment requirements evolve. High-volume, complex warehouse operations without a channel integration strategy suffer from inefficiency and high costs. Inaccurate orders and shipping delays degrade customer satisfaction while escalating freight and inventory carrying costs that erode profit margins. Retailers are looking for operational agility rather than the inflexibility of existing systems to move at the pace of the omnichannel environment. Leading firms are leveraging an adaptable business process engine that accepts and prioritizes orders from multiple sales channels and optimizes multi-channel fulfillment. Now joining us to discuss distributed order management is Dan Gilmore. Dan is the Chief Marketing Officer at Softion, a leading supply chain software company. Dan Gilmore, welcome to the Outlook series.
Thank you very much. Very pleased to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Hey there, Dan. Now, what is the history of distributed order management?
Yeah. It's actually been around maybe a little bit longer, or a lot longer than people realize. There's actually a couple of companies specifically that I'm aware of came up with the solution in the late 1990s, early 2000s to meet the needs of the growing, e-commerce fulfillment, e-commerce, business model. And really, the .com retailers that were just emerging that needed some way to connect their, kind of virtual businesses to a network of suppliers out there and figure out if which suppliers had which inventory and what could they, have allocated and shipped on their behalf. So, it sprung up from those requirements, but then the .com bubble burst in, 2001, 2002. And the interest in DOM kind of, from my view, faded a bit and really kind of stayed that way through the 2008-2009 recession. But coming out of there as e-commerce got back on a high growth path and some other things, were developing, all of a sudden, DOM started to, gain some momentum again. And now to the point where in the last, 3 to 4 years, it's become very prominent, though still not well known by many. But it's become almost essential to run an effective, e-commerce e-fulfillment operation.
So what can be accomplished with DOM?
Well, a whole lot, and I like to compare distributed order management to something like a Swiss Army knife. There's a lot of different capabilities inside that, at least in the leading products that you can kind of pull out to meet a specific need, now and over time. The thing that is most amazing about DOM, and this is just, I've been around the supply chain for a long time, it's the ability to define, the business and fulfillment rules you want to execute, and then dynamically execute those, in real time. There's just never been anything that allowed that level of process definition the way we have with the DOM software, and that is just truly something that gives you just maximum flexibility both initially and over time. So just as a foundation level, it's that ability to define process, typically using a rules engine that really is different about DOM from any other supply chain application that I'm aware of. Kind of beyond that, the basics. First off, you're going to get very granular real-time inventory visibility across an extended network, whether those are your own facilities or the facilities of third parties of one kind or another. Just for retailers specifically, and to some extent, certain consumer goods manufacturers. Just being able to enable e-commerce, e-fulfillment processes without having to change or modify our existing systems. This is just so huge, and I'm talking about things like vendor drop ship and buy online, pick up in store, curbside pickup, those kind of things, store fulfillment, etc. That rather than having to rewrite or rewire, all of your existing systems, you can just put a DOM layer on top and get that, actually rather quickly with a bit of integration work. In that context, I like to think of three kind of concepts here. I invented this actually a long time ago. But you have the points of interaction. Where are people, interacting with you and your store, your channel? and placing orders. And of course, we have online, we have mobile, we have physical stores. Soon it'll be televisions and lots of other mechanisms. So I call those points of interaction or POIs. Then you have points of fulfillment. Where are the different places that you can actually ship inventory to a customer for? Is that a store, physical store? Is that your own party facility? Is that a vendor drop ship? A lot of different options there. And then lastly, points of return or PORs, P-O-R-S. Where are the different places that people are allowed to bring a product back for return? And so what you need to do is really map out the points of interaction, points of fulfillment, and points of return, and see which of those combinations do you want to make available. And DOM is a tool to allow you to do that both initially and then add and amend those, over time. Very, very important. And then, the thing obviously, and with .com retailers struggling, or all retailers now struggling to be profitable in their e-commerce operations, how do I get that optimal order sourcing? Where's the best place to fulfill this order from, given the customer service commitments that I've made, and given the network capacities and constraints? Which is a node that's going to give me the lowest cost fulfillment for that item, and being able to do that for each and every order. And what's very interesting about that is that it's not only a B2C thing for e-commerce retailers, but actually a B2B thing too. We have a number of opportunities going on with more industrial type companies or consumer goods companies for their own internal networks looking for DOM type functionality. It gives you the ability to allocate inventory by customer, by channel, build very sophisticated rules about how you want that inventory ownership, if you will, or capability to be defined and executed against. And kind of similar to that is this notion of an order hub functionality. I have a lot of disparate systems out there. How do I have one system that sits on top of all of them, and all the orders go in there, and then they're routed to the appropriate other system that might be out there for final execution? So I realize I covered a lot of ground there, but that's why I again compare DOM to a Swiss Army knife, because there's a lot of different things you can do, all tailored exactly the way you want to do it, B2B or B2C, and something that just gives you an incredible amount of power.
Yeah, definitely sounds like there's a lot there. How is distributed order management different from traditional order management?
Yeah, that's a great question, and certainly one we frequently get. There's no easy answer, and I guess maybe at the end of the story, there's no question there is some merging that is happening. But I've always said that, traditional order management is more about order processing, kind of at the line item level, pricing, substitutions, credit checks, all of those sorts of things. Whereas DOM is more, has more of an order fulfillment focus. Where is the best place to source this order, and what are the rules associated with making that decision? Now, again, Softion itself has both the traditional order management system and the DOM, and they can be combined into kind of an enterprise order management system, if you will. And certainly, the traditional order management folks are going to build out DOM capabilities. DOM vendors will probably build out more traditional order management capabilities. So there's some mergers happening going on, and maybe 5-10 years from now, the distinction won't be as important. But right now, they kind of represent the differentiated functionalities.
Does Softion view DOM differently than most others in the market?
I think to a certain extent, many of the folks that are out there are just very focused on that retail channel, and certainly there's, a lot of business out there for that. Then you have, I think as you mentioned in the introduction, the brand companies that are now going, consumer direct, and they need some of this functionality. So we do all that and have a number of proof points in that sector, but we also have a number of proof points in more B2B type applications. Some very interesting, use cases actually that maybe we'll get to a little bit later, but so a lot of the vendors out there don't really take that B2B opportunity or use cases, really just not their focus. So that's a real differentiator for us. And we're just not sure why these implementations, from the anecdotes that we hear, take so long and seem to be so hard. A lot of it has to do with the integration. We typically get the integration done in about 3 months. And then once you have that done, it sets the stage for the rules definition and all of that stuff, So we're looking at, 4 to 5 month type implementation. So we just look at it differently. That we don't think DOM, even very sophisticated capabilities, needs to be as difficult as many of the implementations seem to be.
Now, does it make sense to utilize inventory allocation functions instead of distributed order management?
Well, first off, inventory allocation is just one aspect of DOM, so you're looking at what is the total set of capabilities that you're thinking about. But certainly some customers just don't have inventory allocation functions that are very strong or potent, and so, you just, really don't have much of an option there in a real-time e-commerce world. But can the ERP really, do it in real time and do it across an extended network? So can the ERP really allocate goods, say, from inventory that's at a 3PL facility? I'm not so sure that's, often the case. So it's certainly something, companies look at, but again, I'd also say with the inventory allocation in most, in inventory systems, you have a fairly fixed set of rules and nowhere near the flexibility in terms of process and rule definition that you get with the DOM, that in this dynamic world with so much changing so fast, really gives you a leg up. I think you're going to be moving a lot slower if you try to get by with the inventory allocation of your homegrown or third-party ERP.
Why should retailers and consumer goods firms leverage DOM?
Well, we've kind of covered some of those already here, but again, that flexibility, I kind of call it like idea to action, the ability to define those business and fulfillment processes and policies exactly the way you want them in a human language type scenario there. This is just so powerful and so different than the kind of hard-coded way people have had to do things before. There's just really, again, just nothing else, like it. I think, the direct, being good at direct to consumer, and both from a cost perspective and from a customer experience perspective, is just essential. I mean, this is obviously, we see the growth numbers coming out of e-commerce in the pandemic and post the pandemic. If you can't be good at this, how are you going to survive and prosper? It just seems impossible to me. And I think DOM is, one of the most important tools, as we've talked about, in the portfolio that you're going to have to get that job done right. The flexibility over time, the world is changing so fast, and you can move from that idea to action so quickly with the DOM system. And you look at just an example. Take for example, last February or something, when there was all the ice storms in Texas and all of that stuff. And all of a sudden now all these fulfillment places, whether those be distribution centers or those individual stores, became unavailable. And folks with the Softion DOM could go in there and in a matter of hours to almost minutes make changes in sourcing rules. So orders that were supposed to go out of a Dallas DC went out of Salt Lake City or Reno or something instead. And to be able to do that quickly, most companies with their existing systems just don't have that kind of speed and flexibility.
Should DOM and WMS, warehouse management system, be deployed together?
Well, it kind of depends. We've had several customers that have done combined implementations. We've had other customers that have done DOM first because that was just where the need was most pressing, and then came back and did WMS. Now, if you do it that way, that means that you're probably going to be writing, interfaces or integrations to systems that are ultimately going to be replaced with the new WMS. So you have to kind of, think that through a little bit, here. Again, we get those integrations done pretty quickly. So if the opportunity and the benefit is strong enough, then we see some customers going ahead and doing that. I'll just note with you, because we offer, and not many do, offer both WMS and DOM, that if you, deploying both products from Softion, the integration is out of the box. It's already there, and so you don't have to do any additional integration work. So it kind of depends. It really just depends where the pain points and where the applications are, and we've seen it go both ways.
Do existing applications need to be reworked to automate new order and fulfillment flows?
Well, that's the beauty of DOM. Not much. I mean, that's in many cases why you're buying the DOM to come in and rather than happen. And a lot of these, legacy systems are very old and on some data technology or whatever, and not necessarily easy to modify. And so the beauty of DOM is you can come in and put this as a coordinating or orchestration layer over the top, and be able to create those new work and fulfillment flows very easily, much faster than you could trying to modify the systems that you have.
Well, what role does a rules engine play in a DOM solution?
Yeah. I mean, at least for us, and I think for some others, maybe most others, I mean, it's fundamental. I mean, it is the foundation of what you're doing there. I mean, you think of all the kind of if-then statements there and all the different things that could happen. How many line items in this order? Does the store that I'd like to fulfill it from have all of those items? If it doesn't, should I move that item to another store, or should I move it to a distribution center? At what point and then the second store doesn't have inventory either. At what point does moving that further out, kind of negate some of the benefits you have when trying to do store fulfillment and whatever. So, I mean, all these things can be defined, and not in abstruse, techno code or whatever. In human language type rules, you can define all that, and that's what the beauty of what the rules engine does. And then it's not just setting up the rules; it's then dynamically executing those in real time. And I mean, we have customers, for example, that are going in and as things on Black Friday as they start to get a sense for, order patterns and inventory availability and whatever. I mean, on the fly, on Black Friday, the most important day of the year, they're going and changing those rules to accommodate, what's actually happening, out in the marketplace or whatever there. So, for us at least, you wouldn't have a DOM if you didn't have a rules engine.
Can DOM deliver a real-time data hub to retailers?
Yeah, and I kind of mentioned that this notion of an order hub. So it's true for retailers or non-retailers. I mean, it's a central repository of all order activity to have visibility to and to manage those orders across, different channels and different sites. And so, many companies, let's say in the B2B world, many companies, I know you asked about retail, but many B2B companies have grown through acquisition or whatever, and they've got, every sort of ERP and order management system all over the sun. And one path is to try to unify all those under one, SAP or Oracle or whatever instance, but that takes decades and very costly and slow process. And so, you can come in with DOM and put that DOM layer on top, and all the orders go in there, and then the DOM makes a decision about which of those, all those different systems of plants and warehouses and whatever are going to receive the orders based on the rule set. And for retailers too, as those orders are streaming in, right? I mean, it's all about real time now. That no more batch processing of orders or whatever. It's order streaming coming in, and DOM, gives you that visibility to those orders, and you can execute them, very precisely in terms of exactly how you want to handle them, how long you want to hold on to them, looking for opportunities for shipping consolidation and things of that nature. So that notion of DOM as the order hub or order repository is again a foundational kind of capability.
How can 3PLs offer optimal order sourcing?
Well, I mean, that's what DOM provides, and we have a growing number of, we have several 3PL customers and a growing number of 3PLs that seem interested in DOM, and it's very simple why, right, is because, the pick, pack, and ship type activity is kind of a low-margin business. And so if a 3PL, especially one with multiple facilities, can come in and adopt a DOM and now say, here's the kind of value we can add as your, as orders come in, we'll actually take those orders and just the same way that retailers do themselves or brand companies or whatever, we're going to determine the optimal place to ship that order from along the dimensions that I've talked about throughout this presentation there. And so now all of a sudden that puts you in a much more strategic position with your client than you are without that DOM tool in your arsenal. And it becomes a very interesting choice, right, of, does the client want to try to allocate that inventory across the 3PL's, network, or does it just make more sense to just give all the orders to the 3PL, let the DOM figure out which of, those facilities should do the order fulfillment, just like, again, brand companies or retailers would do. This just puts 3PLs in a much stronger place, and, kind of the history seems to be that, retailers will be happy to outsource that activity if the 3PL has the right technology.
Now, how does DOM identify the optimal sourcing location for a given order?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all on those, how you set up those rules as we've been talking about, here or whatever. I mean, if the order, comes from, this location, you define that by zip code, let's just say, you define, which fulfillment node in your network or your extended network is the best place to do that. But there's going to be a bunch of conditions on that. For example, does the node have the inventory? Does it have every line item in the order? Does it have the capacity or the capability to take that order. So, for example, we have some retailers that have a fixed number, whether it's 50 or 100. That's the maximum that they can do in the course of a day. So even though that store fulfillment would be the best place from a timing and a shipping cost perspective, if it's above the capacity of that store, that order needs to be moved. And we even do things like, if they say they can do 100 a day, but it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they've only got 15 done, we'll start to move orders from that location to a different location because it doesn't look like they're keeping up, on their theoretic volume commitments, for example. And so it really is just a set of, hierarchical rules in terms of if-then type, logic in terms of, how you want this to be decided, and it can even be conditional. I mean, we have some customers that are looking at multi-variables in terms of cost and service and timing and, a lot of different things. So it's not just a simple answer, it's a more nuanced answer based on a variety of attributes associated with that order. So and in the end, it's going to deliver the lowest cost order that can be fulfilled and still meet customer commitments, and that's the way to improve your profitability or get moving towards profitability.
Mm-hmm. Now, has Softion done anything to help with multi-channel inventory management?
Well, sure. Again, and that's one of the foundational capabilities I think that we talked about that Adam brings to the table there. So, one of the first questions, of course, is, do you want to segment your inventory by channel, or is it just one, kind of pool for all? The trend seems to be in that regard, but you still may want to put some parameters, around that. And certainly one of the things we see it happening is in new product introductions or, new products to market where maybe the demand across channels is going to be higher than the, incoming inventory that's coming into the network. And so in that case, you want to clearly define that so much of the inventory is going to the retail store channel, so much of the inventory is going to the .com channel, so much of the inventory is going to, the international channel or whatever that, happens to be. And so, that multi-channel inventory, management and the visibility to it and creating a set of rules around it, again, that's one of the great things that Dom does for companies. And, again, something that takes what used to be very difficult coding to achieve and does it through a set of rules definition.
Okay, Dan, now can DOM solutions optimize the inbound flow of goods?
Well, certainly in Softion's case it can, and I think that's somewhat unique to us. We kind of, reverse engineered, if you would. While DOM is kind of about, outbound order fulfillment, if you will, we kind of took the basic rules engine and said, okay, how could we make this work on an inbound case? So, for example, you could have goods coming into, a port of Los Angeles, Port of Long Beach, whatever it happens to be, and they were shipped 3 weeks ago, or now in this current era, 4 or 5 weeks ago, given how long shipping is taking. And, it's now going to look up and say, okay, I got this inventory, I have received this inventory. Now let's take a fresh look at what the on-hand inventory is across my network. Let's look at what the look at what the forecast is for demand over some period of time. Let's look at any promotions that are coming that may affect that demand or whatever, and then we're going to decide, okay, which is the right place to ship this order, which distribution center, which set of stores, et cetera. We're going to get this inventory. We've seen customers that had full-time people trying to make these decisions, and with DOM, just automates the whole process and makes a much more optimal decision.
Now, is there a role for DOM in reverse logistics?
Well, again, in Softion's case, the answer is yes. So we have, one major parts distribution company that, like parts distribution, almost frequently has. It's a multi-echelon network. So you have master DCs and regional DCs and the inventory in the vans of, thousands potentially of technicians. And so if they get done with a repair or a customer visit, they may have parts, either parts that they took off whatever appliance or electronics or whatever it is they're repairing, as well as parts that maybe they were shipped because they thought they were going to be needed and they turned out not to be used. And so what is the technician supposed to do with those parts? Should they be shipped to a repair facility? Should they be scrapped? Should they be shipped to a technician, a couple towns away? Should they be shipped to a regional DC? Should they be shipped to a master DC? So again, just using the same kind of business logic, just in a different mode, a different fashion, we're able to make those kind of decisions in real time and just optimize what to do with that inventory for those service technicians at the end of the day.
Now, can you share a use case with our audience?
Sure, I got a couple I'll try to just do real quick. So just one, is a major omnichannel retailer that used to be, just catalog and web, and then decided to open a series of stores. And they do, this is actually a WMS customer as well, but they do the basics of, dynamic order sourcing across, I think it's 4 or 5 different of their own distribution centers, some third-party fulfillment centers, their own retail stores, and then even some what they call pop-up DCs, where they're taking a much larger percent of the store or some additional space at the given retail locations in peak season and being able to source from there. And so it's just, kind of a classic DOM retail example of how they're driving a lot of benefits from this kind of flexibility and reducing their cost and increasing sales, because if you can find inventory in your network and use it to fulfill an order that you wouldn't have been able to do before, it actually is going to have a top line, impact as well. Another, kind of leading customer of ours is one of the largest e-pharmacy, e-benefits, pharmacy benefits manager type company. They've got a network of dozens of different fulfillment points, a lot of them with automation. And they, not only do they have to find the right sourcing point along the lines we've talked about, to this point in the broadcast, they obviously have all kinds of regulatory things that they need to deal with. So, they have to make sure that, compliance is achieved for each and every order. And also these, equipment and a lot of the automated fulfilling equipment, it's got a capacity. It can do 10,000 orders a day, and that's it. When you get to order 10,001, you either have to move it to a different facility or you have to hold that order. And so they're doing a very sophisticated set of, optimal order sourcing with a number of different attributes going into the decision, and even are doing things with weather. So, for example, we're actually grabbing data from weather.com, and depending on the temperature, determining how many cold gel packs should be inserted in the shipping carton based on the max temperature that's going to and the amount of time it's going to be in transit to make sure that the product stays cold. And then the last just example, this is not a customer yet, but one we're talking to who is traditionally, it's an industrial type company, not a retail company, and they've traditionally sourced, or traditionally fulfilled to customers from their own facilities for a certain set of customers, and then another set of customers using channels, either depending on geography or product type or size or some other, attribute. And what they're finding is sometimes when they don't have the product, they're either, having to back order that order and risk losing the deal, or have to ship it from California to New Jersey or something at tremendous cost. And so they're saying, well, maybe we should use instead a distributor to fulfill that order. But that has all kinds of cost and margin and revenue implications. So getting the rules around that, when would I actually take an order that I normally fulfill and can't fulfill it and hand it off to a channel partner? We're just doing some proof of concept type stuff with them at this point, but that just shows you the kind of complexity you can get into in a B2B environment, and I think it's a great example of DOM outside of retail.
All right. Now, would you like to add anything else to our discussion before we wrap up for today?
I'll just say a couple things real quick. I didn't get a chance to talk about. We do some very interesting things with simulation. So you can take your existing rule set and in a test environment, you can make changes to those rules in terms of the sourcing logic, and then take, say, 3 months worth of orders and run those through in like a simulation and see what actually happens in terms of customer service and shipping costs and inventory levels and things of that nature, and then maybe make some tweaks and run another simulation, and then when you're happy with how you have it, you can just kind of promote that, configuration, test configuration into production environment. So we think that's kind of a unique capability. And I'll just say, DOM, despite its prevalence, and certainly, major retailers are very familiar with it in general, but it's still not very well known. And so, hopefully you're listening today and get some education there. But there's a lot of things that DOM can do in that swift army knife mode with the growth of e-commerce by both not only retailers but brand companies and others. Learn more about DOM and see what it might be able to do for you. It is a very, very interesting application.
Now, where can our audience get more information on Softion's DOM solution?
Sure, we just go to Softion.com, and I think under Solutions you'll find Distributed Order Management, easy enough. And I'll just note we wrote a couple of years ago what we call the Little Book of Distributed Order Management. It's just 65, 70 pages and small size type of format, and we just got a lot of kudos on that. Did a explains all about DOM in a very concise and easy to digest fashion. And you can either have a hard copy sent to you or download the electronic copy, and I think you'll benefit quite a bit from taking a look at that.
All right, Dan, I certainly appreciate you joining us here today and wish you the best of luck with your endeavors over there at Softion and their distributed order management solution.
Thanks for having me today. Really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today, and be sure to log on to the Outlook Series site for your business and technology news.